All right, things are getting good. I wonder what happens now. As you can see in this picture, we've got Susan pretending to faint, and while she's going down, she's grabbing onto her teacher, Mr. Smith's ear. Why? Because she thinks she can possibly pull off his face and reveal that he is the alien Broxholm. Whoa. Bold, gutsy. And Susan is desperate because not only is her teacher an alien and nobody knows it except her and her good buddy Peter. But also, she's got a piccolo solo in the upcoming concert, and it's not going great. So, a couple things happening there. Now, chapter 11. It's called Parent Conference. Oh, I love a good parent conference. We've got parent conferences coming up in just a few days. If you haven't already signed up for one, go ahead and sign up now with your child's teacher or kids. Tell your parents to sign up. All right, let's get started. Chapter 11 Parent Conference. Failure! I had hoped to hit the floor with Mr. Smith's face in my hand and Broxholm's real mug exposed for all the world to see. Instead, I ended up with a handful of air and a bump on the head. The other kids in the class shouted and jumped to their feet. Smith Broxholm waved them away. He told Mike Foran to go get the nurse. Then he knelt over me to see if I was all right. He was acting so tender and concerned that I almost felt bad about trying to pull off his face. But all I had to do was think of Miss Schwartz trapped in that force field in his attic, and any guilt I might have felt just floated right away. Susan! Susan, are you all right? He asked, fanning my face. I moaned and fluttered my eyes. What happened? I asked. You fainted, said Broxholm. He patted the side of his head. Almost took my ear with you, he added. He gave me a cute little smile that showed the dimple in his right cheek. Between the two of us, the air was thick with fake innocence. Was it really possible he didn't know what I was up to? A minute later, Mike came back with Ms. Glacka puffing along behind him. She checked my pulse, felt my forehead, and then helped me to her office to, surprise, lie down. She also decided to call my mother. This meant that I had to go home, and then to the doctor's, and then spend the rest of the afternoon in bed, with my mother fussing and worrying about whether or not I was about to get my first period. She even decided that I had to spend the evening in bed, too, after she brought my supper to my room. Gracious, Susan, she said when she burst through the door. This place looks like an explosion at a garage sale. Can't you keep it a little neater? I was planning to clean it today, I said, only I didn't feel up to it after I fainted. Poor baby, she said, setting the tray on my nightstand. She seemed so pleased, I decided not to tell her I had been kidding. She never could understand that I liked my room the way it was. After supper, I slipped out of bed and went to see my father. He was sitting in his den building a model of the Empire State Building out of toothpicks. That's his hobby, making famous buildings with toothpicks. If you ask me, it's pretty weird, but it keeps him happy, which is more than I can say for most adults that I know. So I guess I shouldn't complain. Hi, Pook, he said when I walked in. Feeling better? I nodded, not wanting to tell him I hadn't been feeling bad to begin with. I sat down next to him and started handing him toothpicks. So, what's on your prepubescent mind tonight? He said, holding up a toothpick and dabbing a bit of glue onto the end of it. Dad, I said, but that was all I could think of. I tried, but I just couldn't bring myself to explain the situation. After a full minute of silence, he turned to me and said, You all right, Susan? I knew he was really concerned because he let the glue on the end of his toothpick dry out while he was waiting for my answer. I'm fine, I said at last. Well, not exactly fine. I've got a problem. What kind of problem? He asked. He put down his toothpick and gave me his full attention. This was terrible. Can you imagine trying to tell your father that your teacher is an alien? He was going to think I was out of my mind. But I had to do something, so I took a deep breath and said, It's about Mr. Smith. He nodded, inviting me to continue. Look, I tried, I really did, but I just couldn't bring myself to say the words, My teacher is an alien. After a long, uncomfortable silence, I finally said, I don't think he likes me very much. Dad looked appropriately worried. Why not? He asked. Well, he shudders whenever he sees me go to my music lesson. I hoped that might sound weird enough to get him to ask another question. Come on, Dad, help me here, I thought. Ask the right questions. But he just laughed. Well, as long as Mr. Smith doesn't actually say anything, I don't think you can complain too much, he said. Maybe the guy just doesn't like music. Not everyone can be as cultured as we are. He's probably just a Philistine. Yeah, I thought, a Philistine. From the planet Phyllis. But all I said aloud was, yeah, a Philistine. Figuring he had solved my problem, Dad turned back to his toothpicks. I wouldn't let it get to you, honey, he said. School year's almost over. You can tough it out till then. Now, you better scoot back to bed before your mother catches you out here. I gave him a hug and trudged back to my room. Now what? If I was going to do anything about this mess, I had to get some proof, and fast. I was still trying to figure that all out when Peter called. Nice try today, he said. You're really brave. I just hope Broxholm didn't figure out what you were up to. Great. That was the last thing in the world I wanted to think about. I wasn't brave, I said, just desperate. What I want to know is, what are we going to do next? We've got to find some way to prove the truth about Broxholm. Actually, that's why I'm calling, said Peter. I wanted to know if you had a camera. Sure. Why? He hesitated, then said, Well, are you game for another expedition into Broxholm's lair? I smiled for the first time that day. So we can take a picture of Miss Schwartz. Peter, you're brilliant. When can we go? Only when can we be sure he won't be there? How about during school? Peter, I can't skip school. My mother would kill me. Would you rather get kidnapped by aliens? He asked. I sighed. All right, I'll bring my camera to school on Monday. We'll talk about it then. I hung up and tried not to think about the fact that in 2 days I was going to go back into the aliens' den. In fact, I spent most of that whole long, sleepless night trying not to think about it. Oh boy, going back into the aliens' den. This time, trying to take a picture of Ms. Schwartz in that force field. That'll be good proof that something fishy's going on. Oh, poor Susan and her dad. He just didn't ask the right questions. Of course, can you blame him? He's trying to make his toothpick castle, and his daughter thinks that her teacher is an alien. Well, this is a trope in children's literature, the clueless parent, and especially the clueless dad. Don't get too offended, especially all you dads out there if you're listening. We just have to put up with it. Till next time.